Hello guys and dolls, welcome back to Honey Badger 3D Print and Paint. Today, the Battle of Champions. This is to crown a winner of who is the best hobby printer to go out and buy. But before we get started, roll those credits. So, we'll run through the specs of these machines in a second. Okay, so we have 4 tests that we've gone through. Okay, so the first test that we did for these is the Vase test. This is great for testing extrusion and flow rates. It's also good at demonstrating that millimeters a second isn't the be-all and end-all when it comes to the speed of your machine. Machines like the Bambu and the FUlsun have acceleration as well. This shows how much of a difference that makes. The second test was the torture toaster. The torture toaster is all about tolerances, making sure that everything moves and that the model actually looks good. Then we have our fleet of benches. So those benches are all done at different speeds, but same layer heights. So it shows part cooling, shows overhangs, and shows all of that stuff. And the last one is an audio test. So this is where when the machine is running and none of the other machines are, how they sound. So before we delve into all of that stuff, let's talk about these machines. So, okay, there's an awful lot in this video. The purpose of this video is to try and show that in a hobbyist world of going for the sort of ultra premium and sort of quite expensive X1 carbon, how that compares to a Prusa Mark III S Plus, how that compares to the Mark V, and how that compares to the V400. These 3 machines are all around the same sort of price, and then you go a little bit more expensive to get the X1. The X1 was printing with the AMS, so I have included that in the price, but technically speaking with PLA, it shouldn't really make that much of a difference in quality. So you could take these results and apply them to a machine without ABS, without an AMS, and save yourself a little bit of money. So let's dive into how these models look. Right, okay, torture test time. So this is the torture toaster. It's available on Colts 3D and a bunch of other places. I'll put a link in the video description. It's an all-in-one print test that does a really good job at testing tolerances. So we'll start off with the Prusa. So first of all, one toast comes up, the other toast doesn't, which means that this toast does move, but that means the lever inside has broken. You can see inside of here, so this is part of the tolerance test. This side does close and this does work. So you can see that that locks and it unlocks, so that works. But in here, you can see that all of the pegs have fallen out and the braces in between have broken. You can see this side that we've got a pretty comprehensive overhang test, and we're good up to about 50 to 60 degrees. 70 it's really struggling, 80 it's really struggling. And again, on this side, this does work. So Prusa gets, honestly, about a 5 out of 10 on that. So this took 12 hours, 29 minutes, and it was printing at 150 millimeters a second. So that's the Prusa. This is the M5. So we'll start with the tolerances. 5 good, 4 good, 3 good, 2 good, fused on 1. First layers were not amazing on this, bearing in mind it's auto bed leveling, but the doors do work. So you can see there, the doors work. Toast moves up, nice and clean, done a really good job there. And then we go over to here. Everything up to 60 is pretty good, 70 and 80 are struggling. Again, door does actuate and work, but you can see that some of the first layers on this just aren't great. So all in, I'd say, and just to be clear, we've got the M50, took 11 hours and 5 minutes, and that's on 150. I would give that about a 7.5 out of 10. Those first layers are just unforgivable for a machine that should be doing auto bed leveling. Again, if I was inclined to mess about with it a bit, you can see that very clearly on one side it's too far away from the bed, and it's very clearly got an elephant's foot on this side. So about a 7.5 out of 10 for that. Okay, this one is the Bambu. So this one, you can see all of these pins have printed, and they are all movable down to 0.2. The 0.1 is fused. The door does work. You can see there, that does actuate and works. Both toasts come up. So really nice there. This is all the way up to 50 degrees. It's pretty good. 60, all the way up to 60 degrees, sorry, it's really good. 70, it starts to struggle. 80, it starts to struggle as well. You can see that this one printed in 5 hours and 6 minutes, and that's at 150 millimeters a second. Overall, I'd score the Bambu about a 9 out of 10 on that. So the only thing that it messed up was it won't do this 0.1 of a tolerance. So that's about a 9 out of 10. Overall, print quality is really good. Then finally, we've got the FUlsun. So all of our pins are here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. None of them move. Now, a lot of this is to do with, you can see here, this is to do with the textured build plate. The door does actuate. It's a little stiff, so this does work. But none of those pins printed. Again, because it's got this textured build surface, they're all fused. Both toasts move, so they're quite good. We come onto the side. 50 is struggling. 60 is struggling there. 70 and 80 all really struggling. Again, door does actuate, but quite stiff. And if you actually look on the top here of that toast, That's a really ropey layer on there. This did do it in 5 hours, 11 minutes, and it did do this on 150 millimeters a second. Honestly, I'd probably give that about a 7 out of 10 as well. I'd say it's the worst quality overall. Some of the sides here are really, really nice. You can see here that these are really good, but that first layer and that build plate, just not good. And those top layers are really poor. The part cooling is also really suffering on that as well. So the worst one out of the lot, I would say. So, a lot of information, right? A lot of information. Ultimately, all of these machines are viable contenders for somebody's wallet, right? They are all perfectly serviceable machines for what they are. I will go on a very quick rant. I have 4 machines on this desktop, and as a result, I have had to use 4 different slicers: Bambu Studio, Ankermake Studio, Prusa Slicer, and Cura. Please, for the love of all that is holy, stop making your own slicers. It makes managing multiple machines a nightmare. If you only have one machine, and let's say you've got a fleet of Bambus, you only have to worry about Bambu Studio, and that's fine. Most people don't only have one machine, they have multiples, and having to use multiple slicers is honestly, it's such a pain. There are so many settings that things that are called different things or in different places, and you tweak something in one place and you can't tweak it in the other. So I tried to make all of these as comparable as I could inside of the limitations of the slicer. I think some of the things that I found most interesting were when we were talking about Vase mode. So the time difference between these is astonishing. And it comes back to the idea that just saying that your machine goes at 400 millimeters a second doesn't necessarily mean it's the fastest. Because the time that it took to do these, it comes down to acceleration, jerk control, cornering, and a bunch of other settings, plus the speed limitations that are in firmware, like on the Prusa, to mean that it doesn't matter how high you put your millimeters a second, actually, after a point, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Noise-wise, I was really surprised by this. So if you look at that part of the video where we've got all the noise settings, I thought the Bambu was going to be the loudest because, frankly, it's one of the major things that people tend to talk about on the Bambu groups. Now, to be clear, I measured this both with the door open and with the door closed, and I was measuring it once it was printing and once it was a few layers in to make sure that the auxiliary fans had kicked in. What I didn't noise test was the calibration one, where it does the vibration measuring and all that stuff. That is really quite loud. I haven't done an audio test of that because it's such a brief period that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to do it. I was really surprised at how loud the M5 was. When it does its first few layers, it's not that bad, but once you get to part cooling, it isn't quiet. I mean, as you can see from the results, it's as loud as the Bambu if you have the door open. So it does kind of come back to the point that if you are going to be printing at high speeds, you need to have a relatively powerful cooling fan to be able to actually have a hope at being able to do any level of overhangs or anything else. And unfortunately, fans aren't quiet. Okay? It used to be that we were experiencing a lot of motor noise and things like that. Very clearly now, fans are going to be the next big issue in how you dampen that noise down. If we just look at sheer practicality of machines regarding footprint, regarding the space that you need and the versatility, I think we can all agree from the print results and from this, the Bambu does win on pretty much all of those accounts. Again, I want to be really clear that I was using stock profiles for everything. You can tune, you can modify, but all of these machines are stock, and I used stock profiles. The point of this video is that if you go out and buy one of these machines, what should you expect it to do near enough out of the box? Because not everybody knows how to tweak different parts of the slicer. Not everybody knows that they need to sometimes adjust flow rate, or they need to adjust part cooling, or they need to reorientate their part based on which direction their part cooling blows in. So as a result, I put these in as close as I could get. The Prusa, as you can see from the tests, really showed its age. It is slow. It did not do well on the torture test, really. The torture toaster on the Bambu wasn't the worst, but it was by no means the best. It did fairly well on the benches. Again, to be clear, although it went up in speed, it is limited by its acceleration. So although we went all the way up to 350 millimeters a second, it really wasn't actually going materially any faster than it would have done before, because we're into the speed limitations that are in the firmware and it won't let you go any faster. The M5, surprisingly versatile. Noisy, but surprisingly did really well. Coped well with the faster speeds, coped well with the extrusion tests, did really quite well on the torture toaster. I'm going to be honest and say I'm not a big fan of the textured build plate, but then I'm not a fan of the build plate on the FUlsun either. There's a lot of information in those tests. You guys can absolutely draw your own conclusions from those. Let me know in the comments if you feel that that maybe we got this wrong in the way in sort of the conclusions that we drew. But for me, the best machine out of the lot, the one that produced the most consistent results, was the Bambu. So the Bambu was almost the fastest, but it was very quick. It was not too bad on noise, which is surprising because it's one of the most consistent complaints about them. Quality-wise, I think it beats all of the other machines. The quality of prints that this turned out, consistent extrusion, consistent layer lines, really, really nice on the benches, did well on the overhangs, and did really well on its torture toaster. Plus the first layer, again, really, really nice. I think the Bambu comes out on top. For me, the M5 comes in second. Again, did really well. Didn't do quite as well once we started to really crank the speed up. And again, I don't know what the acceleration limitations are in this to make it sort of go as fast as it needs to go. We did try to do all of these in the same filament. They are all in the same brand. They're just, some of them are black and some of them are grey. It shouldn't make a material difference. The torture toaster came out really nicely. Again, not really a big fan of that textured build plate. There is not a smooth side on this, so both sides of this are textured, and as a result, I can't sort of compare it to the others. Makes it difficult because when you're looking at the base of these, as we showed you on the video, this is where all of the tolerance test parts go, and it's where these parts go as well. And because it's textured, it almost splayed them out a little bit, made it really difficult. The FUlsun comes in a close third. Ultimately, it is a different kinematic system, right? So it's a different motion system. This is a delta, these are Cartesians, and this is a core XY. So I personally found this a little less versatile. It certainly went the fastest. It certainly did really, really well when it was at the speeds it was at. Its acceleration is really good. But the part cooling does let it down. You can see on the benches, as you start to crank up the speed, you do start to sacrifice a bit of quality. What you have to do, ultimately, is reorientate your parts on the build plate so that the part cooling blows across your model and never sort of favours one side or the other. I think that was probably the issue we had when those benches started to get a bit ropey. But really, this machine is comfortable about 150 to 200 millimeters a second. The Maker is very comfortable at around 250. The Prusa is comfortable around 100. And in normal mode, this is going 250. But even once we get into sport mode, when we're getting to sort of over 300 millimeters a second, this still produced really consistent results. So I was really, really impressed with that. If there are things you guys would like to see about these machines, then by all means let us know. You know, I think that these are sort of the machines that people look at to be sort of out of the box, ready to go, fairly simple to use with stock settings, and that you get very respectable results out of all of them. They are all very different price brackets, as we showed at the beginning, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree that you think the Bambu produced the best results? Or do you think that we did these, that we need to do some other tests? More than happy to try and do some more. The Prusa is actually on loan to us. We don't have a Prusa in our workshop. Frankly, after this test, I'm absolutely in no rush to get a Mark III. It would be interesting to put a Mark IV in the mix and see how that does. And see whether or not it makes a material difference to the overall outcome, whether it then sort of starts to get a bit closer to meeting the Bambu. But this is what we have right now, so that's what we tested with. So don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next video.